boa tarde, muito obrigada para aqueles que estão aqui presentes, muito obrigada àqueles que estão nos assistindo à distância e também àqueles que vão assistir posteriormente. É uma honra a gente receber a professora Rachel aqui no Instituto de Estudos Avançados. Na semana passada, ela esteve aqui conosco, trabalhando a semana inteira com o Grupo Canoa, do Instituto Canoa, fazendo formação de formadores, mas ela nos deu a honra dessa conferência agora para um público amplo, e eu queria registrar os agradecimentos não só para o Instituto Canoa, mas principalmente agradecer ao Instituto Unibanco, que propiciou a vinda da Rachel, né, desta vez. Então, a gente quer agradecer muito essa oportunidade de tê-la aqui presencialmente, para que vocês possam estar aqui com ela, né, e os demais possam enviar perguntas aí pelo ia responde@usp.br. Então, se vocês quiserem fazer perguntas, por favor, mandem por e-mail aqueles que estão conectados. Rachel, it's an honor. I will not say about your CV, não vou falar do currículo dela, que é muito extenso. A gente quer ouvi-la. Thank you so much.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. And I'm going to try to be very explicit in speaking. I was a teacher for 10 years, and I taught English and French. Even with translation, sometimes people tell me that because I was a teacher, I speak in a way that they understand more than they think they do. But please do not hesitate. Please do not hesitate to stop me and to say anything that doesn't make sense, okay? It's really important to me. And also, by now, I want to warn you, because I understand more Portuguese than you think I do. So careful from what you say. And that's also because, as I said, I speak French. I was born in Romania, so I also speak Romanian, and that's also pretty close to Portuguese. So that's my Romance language history. So I would like to present to you today a kind of pedagogical method that was developed at Stanford University, and it's called complex instruction. I will explain why. There is a book translated into Portuguese. I wish we had a copy here, but I think we didn't think about it. About this book, Designing Group Work. And it was a project that started even in the late 50s, early 60s, by Professor Elizabeth Cohen, who was my mentor at Stanford, and who I met my first class when I came to Stanford as a master's student. I did a master's in the School of Education, a master's in sociology, and a PhD in education. And it was all focused on the development and research of this methodology. And also then, when I was director, I also focused very much to prepare the students in the Stanford Teacher Education Program across 5 subject areas: mathematics, sciences, languages, and also within language English, but also world languages. And there were French, Japanese, Chinese, and Spanish students. I mean, teachers that were being prepared. Okay. Now, the interesting part of this is that the focus that you will hear today from me is basically a sociological lens. Okay, so I now have to manipulate this and and the microphone. So excuse me if I get confused with the pages, but we're going to make it work. So the agenda. Oh, did we see the agenda already? Just the main themes. Yeah, we don't have, yeah, right, we took it out. No, you're right. I said it in here. That was enough. But the next one is that we are going to take a newer view of what views of learning and teaching in classrooms and schools. Okay, so in very widely known are the theories and explanations that are focused on the individuals in the classroom, right? And achievement or non-achievement is explained by individual characteristics, such as, ability, quote unquote, intelligence, academic ability, social ability, motivation, and individual differences such as race, gender, social and economic status, and so on and so forth. Basically, it looks at the individual. So what we proposed is, in addition to that, we're not saying that's a bad thing, but in addition to that, it would make sense to think about the classroom not as a collection of individuals, not as here are 40, or in Brazil I hear sometimes 50, in the United States too, 50 students. I actually think I'm going to come down. You still see me, right? In the back, okay. I'm just more comfortable walking here. Yeah. So instead of thinking about the classroom as a collection of, as I said, 40 or 50 individuals with a teacher, let's think about it as a social system with a teacher. And if we do that, we add some sociological concepts to the equation, such as, I have it here, you have it on the slide. Those first and foremost is the interaction, right? When in the system, there is an interaction among the elements of the system. Other things like, and that's the important, equity, status, power, and prestige. We're going to talk more about it. Very importantly, what is the task that the students are working on? What is the work that they do that we call also the curriculum, basically? And of course, what's the structure, and what are the conditions? The outside condition. Does the teacher have enough support from the principal? Oops, there are people there. Okay, sorry. I didn't realize all of a sudden there are people there. Welcome. I'm sorry, I was behind. Importantly, who interacts with whom, and if they don't interact, why? Because we know over and over across subject areas, really from kindergarten to graduate school at Stanford University, the more the student participates, the more they learn. Therefore, we need to make sure that participation is equitable. Okay. Basically, what we're doing, we are opening the black box of the classroom. So, sorry about that. So, we're looking now at the as learning, when we look at what is the learning and teaching in the classroom. We're looking at learning not only as a cognitive activity, which is most often talked about, but also as a social and emotional activity. Okay? And also then the learner interacts before the learner interact. Oh, okay. This type with the that. Yeah. The learner also interacts with other people, with books, with materials, and with the environment. All of this is activity, is interaction. And what is the definition, one definition of learning from here? You can read it. I don't need to translate. Can you see? Oh, they can't see it. Can you see? You can? Yeah? Oh, okay. All right. Now I feel guilty that I didn't see you before. Okay, and the reason I took this definition from How People Learn, the second volume, is because it's two very, very good volumes about how people learn, published by the National Academies in the United States, and it's free. You can download it, and it's free. Plus, I also quote it because it actually, in the second volume, it talks specifically about complex instruction and its effectiveness. So I thought it's something to be proud of. So that's why I have it there. The other principle that I thought would make sense to focus on is the notion of alignments, a thing that the goals of the learning. So when any teacher and any one of us, and in some way or another, we are all teachers, I'm sure, even though we differ in the age of our students. And sometimes, frankly, I wouldn't have been able to talk about how are my students who are graduate students at Stanford different from seventh graders, but hey. So what are the goals of the lesson that I prepared? Which then makes sense to think about what will be the activity that I design and what will be the structure. Then, as well as how do I control, how do I assess, basically, of what happens and what does the teacher do. So as we look at the, line by line, as we look at how the objectives differ, we can also see how it aligns with the activity, with the structure, and the role of the teacher. And the more complex, the more higher level of uncertainty in the objectives and in the activity, the more the teacher needs to delegate authority. Because if you have 20 groups, like we had in our week of training last week, the teacher, in this case, I was the teacher. It's just impossible to be in 20 places at once and make sure that everybody's working and doing what they need to do. So as a teacher, I need to be able to teach the learners how to become accountable to their colleagues and how to make sure that they also are accountable to themselves, of course. And that's why the change in the whole classroom management structure. And the students learn cooperative, we call them cooperative norms. What does it mean to be able to help one another? Doesn't come naturally to many. And how to make the work, how to make sure that the group actually functions the way it should function. And that's when everybody in that group has a specific role that does very specific things in the group, and those roles rotate. So over time, everybody gets to be what we call a facilitator, a reporter, somebody who's the materials manager, gets all the materials, and so on and so forth. So we also have very ample evidence that the kind of learning in small groups has many very, very positive outcomes, many very positive consequences. There is academic gains, there are academic gains, there are gains in the level of content that the students learn. Of course, the language develops, and that's particularly important in many, many countries right now, including the United States, I think also Brazil, when there are so many situations. I was just in Europe recently, in Germany, and I found that I went to visit a school, and there were 15 students and 10 languages among them. And that was much even for me. But the teachers are panicked. They really are panicked. They do not know what to do because it was a class to teach German, the language of instruction. And it's hard when you think about it. And the many schools just are at loss for the moment, which is why I think complex instruction kind of went globally. And because that particular situation is very spread. And there is also, again, evidence that there is development, intellectual development, meaning that academically and also cognitively, there actually are gains. And there is research about that. There's a doctoral dissertation. And all of those other kind of benefits, if participation is equal. So here we go to our main thing. But before we continue, if possible, I would like for you, if you have a piece of paper, please use it. If not, that's fine too. But think for about, I don't know, 60 seconds, a little bit, about what we talked until now. And then, if you feel like it, turn to your neighbor, but get closer, or turn around, or do whatever you want. You'll find something. And just talk about what you think up until now, and if you have any questions, okay? So let's make it for you first, and then let's do it a minute and a half. Okay. I should have said it, sorry. Said we raise the hand. We raise the hand and close the mouth. Thank you. That's what we did in first grade too. Okay. So, oh, thank you, Kiki. So much better. Wow. He has these great ideas. I love it. So we said the if, and now we get to why we call it building equitable, excellent, and democratic classrooms. At first, many years ago when I started this, we called it equitable and excellent. And people said, equitable? What do you mean by equitable? You have some black kids in the classroom? I said, okay, ask smarter questions. But it is really about very diverse, heterogeneous classrooms, meaning that students are of very diverse in many different ways, and it never matters how and what, as long as they are diverse. And also, it is excellent because equity and excellence are interdependent. It's not or, which many people think. Oh, they said to me, you mean it's not remedial that you do? Remedial, that everybody knows that word, right? Because you think, no, how do you say remedial? And it's a classroom that has many students with special needs, right? And sometimes people think that it's called remedial, instead of saying, what do we do to make sure that everybody has access to learning? And so to go back, equity and excellence are interdependent because it's not really equitable if only a certain strata of the students has access and success of good teaching and learning. And it's not excellent, again, if not everybody can get to be successful in what they need to do. And then the democratic part comes from the fact that when the teacher delegates authority, what we talked about before, when the teacher delegates authority, basically what the teacher does, she shares her authority. She shares her power because the students become accountable for themselves and for the others. And also in the activities that they do, the teacher very often gives many choices. So I did that once for my class. I was teaching the concept of status, and I said, make a representation of status any way you want. And the one that I will never forget was a student who loved to arrange flowers. And flower arrangements are shorter flowers, medium, and long stem. And he made status a flower arrangement and brought it to the classroom for status. And I just remember that as one of the beautiful things because I love flowers. So what then are the conditions? What are some of the main conditions before we even start building? Number one, we need to make sure that the curriculum is high quality intellectually as well as academically, right? We can't water down the curriculum. Really, really important. Can't maintain excellence if the curriculum is not such. That it is intrinsically motivating as well as rewarding, right? That the students really like to do this and they want to do. And finally, particularly nowadays with heterogeneous classrooms, we absolutely need to take into account and make sure that is socially, and not only socially, but racially, and in many other ways, ethnically and linguistically, relevant and sustaining. And we recognize that. And and then finally, of course, that the overall ambiance of the classroom is such that interactions are equitable. And that, of course, we plan the groups very carefully. And again, most importantly, we intervene when we see inequities, which means status issues, status problems. So here is a visual for, right? That's the next one. Yeah. A visual for what I just said. Learning, we find if learning as the final outcome, we interaction, participation at the individual and at the classroom level, but interaction is, and we found it over and over, statistically significantly predictive of the learning outcomes. And here, what we call the learning is basically post-test minus pre-test. Okay, so it really is the gain. And the interaction, we went around the classroom and counted the number, the proportion of the students who were interacting with other students. All of what I'm saying is years and years and years of research in hundreds of classrooms. And then we went around not only to count the students, but we also, I did it myself, followed the teacher, went behind her for the whole lesson, and was listening to what she said and wrote down what she did to see whether really she was able to delegate authority, to not come to the students and say, okay, do this, do that, da, 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 you know. No, because if she did that, the students stopped working. Then she was hovering. So what then, the more she delegated, there was more interaction. That's again, as you can see, these are just very few of the research that is behind this, including my own dissertation. Okay, now we get to finally to what we, what I promised from the beginning. For all of this is good. We get the results. And then, you know, people always say, yeah, but, right? What are the problems? Okay, so what I showed you before is at the classroom level, but at the individual level, we find the same relationships personally, individually, for each student. The gain in learning is related to the work together. And if the teacher supervises, which is the opposite of delegation of authority, if the teacher supervises, it brings down the participation. Again, a lot of data and research. Okay, and this is the yes, but. Because what are the barriers for productive participation and equitable participation? So let's look at some photos. Wait, can you go quickly? Okay, that's a sad moment. I always think that makes me sad. I hope it's not my grandson. Okay, this always was not my classroom, but it always reminds me of the seventh grade. I'm sure you must have seen a seventh grader like that, yeah? And that poor little girl. She's just trying to play, but they won't let her. Okay, that's a famous one. And I remember I actually was in this classroom when this is part of a big video. It's a group of two boys and two girls in a history class. And this boy here, looking at kind of sad, sat there for the whole class and didn't say a single word. I was very sad, and I was dying to interact, but to do something with that group. But of course, I can't do that. It's not okay. I was just the researcher in there, so I always tried to either have something in my hand so I can't go and put it on the desk, or walk around with both hands behind my back so I don't intervene. But this boy, what he did, almost the whole another situation. Yet another. Okay. The barriers that stand in front of equal participation is called status. So what are we going to do about that is the issue. So how about, I don't think we need a break, but how about you get up, those who want to, and if you need to stretch, please do that. Okay? We're going to have, to just stand up. I know you've been sitting a while. If you want to, that's what I always do. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We're watching it, right? Yes. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Hold on. I know because you yes. Oh my God, Andrew. Oh my God. Oh my. Good to be here. Okay. All right. We just had a moment, Angela. Yeah. How many years ago was that? Many. We were 12. Uh-huh. Gosh, no. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you for coming. I'm emotional. Okay. So, the barriers, and particularly for the classroom, what we look at is the perception of each other's academic status. Kids go around and they say, oh, I took this test and I only got a 7. Yeah, but I got a 10. So that immediately establishes the academic status, right? And then the other dimension that is important in classrooms is how many, in elementary classrooms, kids think about how many friends do I have? You ask them. Whereas in middle school and high school, it's the issue of popularity, right? Now, how do we know this? How do we measure it? What we do, how we establish the status? What we do is we give each student a list of the names of all the students in the classroom. And we say, circle the names, as many as you want, including your own name is up there, of who do you think is the best or good in mathematics. Circle. Then they get another piece of paper with the same thing, with all the names, and say, elementary schools, who's your best friend? And they circle. Sometimes it's not reciprocated, but that doesn't matter right here. Or in middle school and high school, who's the most popular, right? Because they have the coolest, leather jacket. I actually remember the case. Or they are the coolest person in the way that they move. You know, trying to think. I taught middle school and high school. And then we count the number of choices that everybody got. If they got one choice, they got number one. If they got two choices, then two, and so on and so we counted them. And someone who got, let's say, 10 choices, or the highest number of choices, those were the high status students. The lowest number of choices were the low status student, and everybody else in the middle. And then what we found also is that these kinds of status, as we saw them, are connected to the expectations that people have, that the others have of them. Yes, I'm going to get to it. Yeah, thank you. Okay. So that's why I wanted you all to get up and move a little bit, because we're going to watch a video that's about a minute and a half. And I have seen it a million times, maybe 2 million times. And every time I see it, my stomach hurts. It's really hard to watch. So we are going to watch it twice. And the first time we watch it, afterwards, we will be quiet. And you will just think, and maybe if you want to write it down, just take a note about how you feel and what you think at that particular moment, okay? So let's do that, and then before we go to the second time, I'll give you more things to do. Okay, oh, sorry, all right. These are 3 boys, 7th grade, Doug, Will, and Reggie. It's very not clear. Oh, maybe I'm just too close. No, it's okay. All right. These are 7th graders in 7th grade in the United States, in California in particular. They learned world history. And these students were learning about Japan in a unit about social stratification in Japan. They learned everything from samurai, from women working in the fields, and other things about social stratification. And also, they learned about the fact that when they went, people went on a pilgrimage to Ife, which they do every year. You recognize this? Thank you. Then the big differences among people kind of disappeared for a while. And so these boys are given the task to go on this pilgrimage and to choose from a list of 15 items, only 10 items to take with them, because it was very hard to, carry a lot and so on and so forth. So that's the activity that they are doing now.
They're doing an exercise in setting priorities.
Okay, do we want a knife or no? We don't want that? Leave it. Okay. Not yet. Don't do anything with it yet. Okay. How about
We don't need a
we need a knife?
I just said.
Yeah or no?
No.
No. Just leave it. Or
Yeah, leave it home.
Okay.
Leave it home.
paper and ink, no. Sock.
Yeah, because if you get a wound or something, you just like
Okay, socky.
in the John Wayne movies.
Okay. That. Cooking pans.
We
Yeah.
need that for cooking.
Koku. Flint and tinder. We want that, right?
Well, we gotta take out some.
How many do we have so far?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, let's pick out a fruit. No, we don't need umbrellas, definitely not.
No.
Don't you think we got any fruit? I'm hungry right now. Well, we might need a knife more. Yeah, let's say to kill knife somebody. over fruit. Not kill somebody,
Knife.
kill some food if we get Yeah, that's hungry. what I mean.
Okay, and
Kill
nice. So
somebody,
we have our
okay.
10 things we want. Sandals. Money.
Why'd you do that? Why don't you just cross it out?
Okay. We're going to watch the video again. And this time, please pay attention to the body language of the group members. Pay attention to the proportion of the interaction and the quality of interaction, as well as anything else that you think might not have worked. Okay? So, let's go again.
They're doing an exercise in setting priorities.
Okay, do we want a knife or no? We don't want that?
Leave it.
Okay.
Not yet. Don't do anything with it yet.
Okay, how about
We don't need a
we need a knife?
I just said.
Yeah or no?
No.
No? Just leave it? Or
Yeah, leave it home.
Okay.
Leave it home.
paper and ink, no. Sock.
Yeah, because if you get a wound or something, you just like
Okay, socky.
in the John Wayne movies.
Okay. That. Cooking pans.
We
Yeah.
need that for cooking.
Koku. Flint and tinder. We want that, right?
Well, we gotta take out some.
How many do we have so far?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, let's pick out a fruit. No, we don't need umbrellas, definitely not.
No.
Don't you think we got any fruit? I'm hungry right now. Well, we might need a knife more. Yeah, let's say to kill knife somebody. over fruit. Not kill somebody,
Knife.
kill some food if we get Yeah, hungry. that's what I mean.
Okay, and
Kill
nice. So
somebody,
we have our
okay.
10 things we want. Sandals. Money.
Why'd you do that? Why don't you just cross it out?
Take a deep breath. I always do. Okay. So let's see if we can very quickly make groups of 4 people, or 3, maximum 5. Turn around, move the chairs, find a place anywhere you want. If you don't know each other, introduce yourself. Do you wanna join here so that you're a little, yeah, okay. And while you are talking, please just for a moment look at the board and make sure that you try to answer the kind of questions up there, okay? I wish. Sorry? Yes, of course. Make a group. Oh, you're participating. Finally, after all these years.
He saw 1,000,000 times just the video, yeah?
I pulled him in. He said, "I'm an engineer. I'm not an educator." I said, "I'm an engineer too. So come on in."
That's engineering. That's engineering for the
Yeah, yeah.
Three engineers here.
Please teach
side
him.
is the engineering.
Please teach him something that
Okay,
that I wasn't able to teach in 60 years. So go ahead. I already told them. And what? Yeah, he wants to. He wants to. Yes, he really wants to.
Because the other boys are
Right.
They aren't
Right. Absolutely. Right. Okay. 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 Conversations are still going, so take one more minute and close this conversation. I mean, say the sentence. Okay. And just a personal note, my husband happens to be here. We have been together since 10th grade and married for 54 years. And he came here and he said, "Oh, finally I'm learning something." So anyway, okay. What are some, let's talk, what are some really you think stood out to you? Anybody who wants to. What stood out to you in the video, and how did your group talk about it or relate to it? Do we need to give the microphone to people, or can people hear? Who would like to start? Come on, brave. Don't make me cold call you. From psychology? Okay. Who translate for me?
Well, I can.
Oh, you speak English. Okay.
My English is very, very bad. Like the third student in the video, the black student. So I don't know how to say clearly for you. But
You just did.
You can translate.
Okay.
Então, o que nos chamou a atenção, o que nos chamou a atenção foi a ênfase na tarefa por parte dos alunos, ou seja, a ênfase na tarefa, ou seja, o professor deu uma tarefa, né? Escolham itens que vocês levariam para uma ilha, e então eles os dois ficaram focados. O aspecto mais impressionante, obviamente, é a exclusão, é a ausência de inclusão social, e o Luiz, né, o professor Luiz, mencionou isso. Como era uma situação social, né, de grupo, né, você tinha 3 pessoas em que uma falava, a outra escrevia, os dois dialogavam e tinha um terceiro totalmente excluído numa situação de interação social em que eles teriam que, conversando, decidirem a respeito do que valeria a pena levar ou não para o contexto de uma ilha, estando eles sozinhos. Então a gente discutiu basicamente isso. Can you resume?
You understood?
I understood.
Oh, thank you.
I understood because I know what you're talking about. I know the context. So I think I understood about there were 3 learners the teacher gave. Yes, I understood. Thank you. Thank you. Anything to add?
I would like to add something regarding their physical interaction. So there were arms in between one of the participants and the paper he should be reading, so he was not able to read properly. And apart from that, he was sitting in a different table, so he was not at the same table as the other 2 students. And apart from that, it looks as if he was looking from below above, so his eyes were turned up, so he was in an inferior position from start.
Right. Because one of the students was actually standing up, as you saw, right, at the beginning. Yes. He was the one who dominated. Yeah.
Muito prazer, professora. A gente discutiu aqui a respeito da nossa análise do vídeo, referente principalmente à exclusão e às ferramentas que foram utilizadas na exclusão daquele grupo por parte de alguns e o papel de que foi realizado cada um dos estudantes na atividade ali presente. É perceptível que a gente enxerga uma questão do racismo estrutural ali presente na exclusão do garoto, a utilização da ferramenta do corpo como parte de uma exclusão, e aí vem a questão: como é possível um professor que está sozinho dentro de uma turma, de uma sala de aula com 30, 35, 40 crianças, é possível ele identificar essa questão e a gente, de fato, trabalhar e buscar outras maneiras de solucionar e permitir que todos os estudantes possam trabalhar junto em uma atividade e todos aprenderem da mesma maneira?
Yeah. The question about where's the teacher in all of this, right? Well, as I said before, I happen to be in this classroom quite a lot. And Reggie was the only Black student in the classroom. And also, the teacher was a very experienced teacher who did a very good job with many, many aspects. And she happened to be busy with another group. And there was actually a video team. This is our video team, videotape, and so you could see it. And when the teacher saw this videotape for the first time, she actually started crying. And she said, I'll never forget it. Nancy was her name, Nancy Atkinson. And she said, I will never forgive myself that this happened in my classroom. And then I felt kind of sorry, and I showed it to her but it was her classroom. And it is a huge dilemma. Okay, the group happens. It was a big classroom, as I said, 7th grade. And she couldn't be in all places at once. And she was very, very attentive to issues of diversity in the class and of issues of, and by the way, Reggie was not an unpopular student. This happened mainly because the one who was standing up, Doug, was standing up. He really dominated the conversation. That's why he stood up, because I'm going to tell you guys what to do. Okay. But the thing is that what happens over and over and over again is to make sure that these situations, number one, are noticed, and that the teacher actually knows what she should do about it. Okay. And so the next part is exactly that. So we're going to see what are some of the ways that the teacher can do something. Before we do that, though, I want to do a little bit of theory and to tell you that this whole methodology of complex instruction is based on a sociological theory called status characteristics and expectation states theory. It was developed by 3 professors in the sociology department at Stanford, Berger, Cohen, and Zeldich. And they talk about 3 different kinds of status characteristics. Diffuse. So you look at someone, actually, and you think that you know what their status might be in the bigger world, because basically status is determined by society out there. And there seems to be an overall agreement in the society how it is much better to be high status than low status. Because when you're high status, you have access to more things, more financial benefits, better schools, better neighborhoods, and so on and so forth. Whereas low status people don't have access to all those things. Then there are specific status characteristics, and I like to give the example that in the kitchen, the chef is the high status person, and the waiter probably the low status person. Although sometimes he gets some tips, he still doesn't get to the level, okay? So those are the specific status characteristics that are determined by the kind of company that people are in, or ranks, or so on and so forth. And then there are local status characteristics, the ones we talked about, academic and popularity, which are specific for the classroom. Okay, so these 3 are the status characteristics, and with the status characteristics are expectation for intellectual competence, for the quality of the performance, and of other things. So what it looks like is the following. Okay, and this is the theory. Do you want to leave just for a little bit, if you can, Fabio, to go back just to see some of the citations and the names of the people in there. And the one that we did in 1988, the study was to confirm that indeed there is the local status characteristic, which is what the academics and the social that I explained to you earlier. So what goes on then is that high status people have high expectations with them. Low status people, low expectations. And what happens is that not only do we know that, but it leads to stereotype threat in many ways. Okay. Now, what we would like to accomplish is to create a situation where we meet someone and we have kind of mixed expectations. I don't know what to think about them. Let me see what they can do rather than expected. Let's make sure that we understand that everybody has many different abilities and no one has all the abilities, but everybody has some. And that's the mantra of complex instruction. Yes, the ones who know it are nodding. Okay. So let's get to how this happens. Before that, this is the stereotype threat. And it's a very similar phenomenon expressed in another way by Professor Claude Steele, who talks about stereotype threat and who also found in his research that if the person lives, because they know, everybody knows, that's society, and if that person lives and actually actualizes the kinds of stereotype, it gets even worse and worse and worse. Okay. Something to remember. So, come on, Rachel, what are we going to do about this? But here's the visual for it. Let me just see where I am. Add this, delete this, delete this. Yeah. Yeah. So, bottom line. Remember, we saw that participation predicts learning, statistically significantly related, and also that status is statistically significantly related to participation. And what we really want to do is this. Make that relationship go away. In other words, now, this is Professor Elizabeth Cohen. As I said, she was my mentor. And this is a very, very quickly, I just want to say that she started with experiments in the laboratory and then went to the classroom. At first, with an elementary bilingual math and science curriculum called Finding Out Descubrimiento, which then, when we went to middle school and high school, we had to get away from just that specific curriculum and focus on the instruction, which is the technology of the classroom. And it was actually my dissertation in 1985 that came up with that name. I came up with the name of complex instruction. And people said, oh, that's not good. That won't sell, quote unquote, because teachers don't like complex. I said, what shall I say? Simple instruction? So it stayed complex instruction. It is to this day. And as I said, it's now quite famous around the world. So I'm wondering if we need a 5-minute break just to stand up a little bit. No? No? Yes. No, yes. Okay, I said 5, let's take 3.5. I think some people need to stand up. So let's do it. Okay. A little coffee, a little just moving. Okay, go ahead. We're getting to some interesting stuff now. We saw the problem, so how about how to address it? Okay. So this relationship between status and participation, I said before, they are related, which means it's basically a correlation. The higher the status, the higher participation. So the status problem is basically a correlation 0 to 1. That's it. And what we found that problem, that 0 to 1, decreases when the teacher does status interventions. The status interventions are, number 1, the multiple ability treatment. In the multiple ability treatment, the teacher explains to the student that many different intellectual abilities are needed to do a particular task. For example, one of the things that I always loved, to see, this is a poster that a mathematics teacher had in his classroom. And he made this list in alphabetical order of all the different kinds of multiple intellectual abilities that you have when you do mathematics. And also had the students think about, so what are your strengths? The word strengths. Lisa Jilk likes that word. Right? Okay. And as I said, it was also translated into Portuguese, also in alphabetical order, which is great. The second status intervention is called assigning competence. And that actually is a little more complicated in the sense that you have to be able to really, really closely get to know a student, to observe. And at the moment that that particular student says something or does something that is of great use to the group, the teacher comes in. Now, Fabio, you're not Los Deos. Now, did you see what Kaiki just did? That was really very useful. Thank you, Kaiki. You helped the group. I just assigned competence because I like him. Okay, so let's see a couple of examples in real classrooms. This is a mathematics classroom in the United States, high school. And this particular student, is, she's not low status at all, but she didn't talk much, although she had friends and she was okay, but she didn't talk much. She didn't participate much, except one time the teacher saw something.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Now how we gonna get? Oh, you know how we can get? How did we have it last time? That can make it 6. Remember we was like it's 6.
Oh,
It
yeah,
was like was it like that? It is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But it's this. Oh, and then you minus these 2.
Yeah.
But you gotta minus. Don't you gotta minus the x?
Well, you need the x's.
Yeah.
So that's 2y, 2x. Next thing you get 2 more y's.
What are you guys working on?
The last one.
Okay, so I think that you got to slow up and listen to your partner real quick. Because she was saying, how did I do it last time to get 6? And that statement is exactly the right statement that's going to get you where you need to be. How are you going to get 6 rhymes? And she started moving pieces around, and right away someone else was like, no, and started pushing it together. This is an important statement. I think you guys should build on that. So that question is going to get you unstuck. That is the key question, darling.
Unstuck.
Repeat that question for them. That was crucial. Repeat that question.
It's up there.
What did I say? Oh. How did we get? Yeah.
Wait. Oh, wait. That is right.
But we gotta do the x.
That's minus 1. X minus 1.
Minus 1.
X minus 1. So minus 2.
But it's minus 2. Because it's minus 1, then minus 1.
Out of 2.
Out of 2.
So you get 0.
0.
So that's right.
What's right?
2 minus 2.
So in the teacher talks about this video later on, and she says, what I saw was the situation where the young girl said something, which was the right answer, quote unquote, and also the boy next to her didn't see it at first. But then the teacher comes in and says, she asked a very important question that got you unstuck. You were stuck there. But now the question I said unstuck you. And the teacher assigned competence to her. And you see her right here in this photo. She looks at the table, at the blackboard, and she smiles because the teacher actually wrote on the table, on the blackboard, what she said. And she's so proud. She straightens out and look at the smile on her face. There's a big difference. And this is a very experienced teacher who has done this many, many times. Again, I was in her classroom a lot. And she was extraordinary. She was a graduate of our program, and then she served as a co-opting teacher and had many, many teacher candidates who learned from her quite a bit. Her name was Laura Evans. And this is here from a teacher who went through PEDGE, the program. She's very new at it. And also, look at her. This is her first try to do that.
Será que ele precisa ser grande? Porque eu achei que uma... Outra mais ou menos assim, ó. A área vai ser qualidades. E nessa área vai ser 50 x de exercícios para de laranja. Cada x são sempre laranjas. E aí aqui a gente vai fazer uma imagem. Então, essa daí seria... Ó, que é assim, vocês preencheram esta tabela, né? E viram o que está acontecendo aqui com o plantio das árvores. Quanto mais árvores, quanto mais árvores, o que vai acontecendo.
Exportação de laranja.
Ó.
Ah, entendi. Variável.
Exatamente. A Celina tem uma grande ideia para vocês. Você consegue explicar para eles como você pensou? Este aqui, ó, como é que você fez? Então vamos lá. É só você dizer o que corresponde a cada parte. Por que você pensou em duas partes? Por que aqui tem uma operação, aqui tem outra?
Porque essa...
Os pés.
Não.
Adicionais.
Adicionar essa zero e...
800.
Então, aí vocês vão marcar a expressão.
Vai ser sempre...
Okay. So, again, turn and talk for 3 minutes about these two little scenes. Okay, just what did you see? In the two of them. Okay, all right. We saw the two examples. Thank you. Thank you. I know it's late, and I really just want to make sure that I leave you with something. So, excuse me. So, the last thing we want to talk about is how do we recognize equitable classrooms when we see one? Equitable, excellent, and democratic. And as I said before, equity and excellence are interdependent. It's not either or. Many people say, oh, if I have equity, I don't have excellence. If I have excellence, I don't have equity. No. We're not going to make peace with that. So, next one. What does it mean? That they have equal access, multiple opportunities to demonstrate what they know and can do. That both the teacher and the student recognize that intelligence is incremental, flexible, and multidimensional. This theory comes from Carol Dweck, the professor in the philosophy. You heard about her. Sorry. And she basically redefined intelligence. I first started reading her, probably you too, in the 80s. And it was really a huge revelation for me at the time that, oh, you mean it's not just a number and this is it? If you have that number, it stays with you from now till eternity? No, that's not the case. Because intelligence is actually incremental. It grows. And it is flexible. You use it in many different situations, in many different ways. And it is multidimensional. It means that it does many different things, again, in many different situations and under very different conditions. Now, the last point is where I get the most pushback. But, okay, I challenge you. I want to argue that in an equitable classroom, the mean gains will formulate around an acceptable mean. For me as a teacher, I say, I planned my class, I planned my assessment, and I know what I expect from the students. I say, I want most of the students to be here. This is the distribution of their learning gains. And I say, let's say this is an A, and some students are a little higher, some students are a little lower. But that means also I'm a good teacher, right? If everybody gets an A. Yeah, my son, our son, when he was in middle school, said, oh, you give everybody an A? I said, yeah, I actually start. I said, everybody will get an A if you, because my assignments always had criteria. Let's say I had 4 criteria. And the student responded out of the 4 to 2. And I came to the student, I said, okay, yes, responded to 2, you get half the credit. But if you choose to revise and resubmit and look at the criteria again, I'll give you the full credit. And you're all professors here, and you know that we all revised and resubmitted quite a bit, didn't we? So that was the way that I thought about it. And most students actually did take me up on that offer, except I'll never forget this one student who got a B+ because she only had 3 out of the 4 criteria. And I said, come on, do this last one. And she said, Rachel, I'm okay with a B+ at the moment. Leave me alone. Okay, all right, your choice, right? Yeah, and that's the apropos that our son said, oh, that's why they like you. You give everybody an A. He was in 7th grade. Okay. Now, why do you think I said that this is the one that I get the most pushback for? You wanted to say something. Did you? You're not sure? What do you think?
I usually do the same. I give my students the maximum value and send them, defend it, and make it. Sim, eu sempre digo, né, para os meus estudantes, I always say to my students, you have the maximum evaluation, please defend it and prove to me that you deserve this status. And sometimes they also do the same. They say, well, maybe I don't deserve. Maybe I can be okay with a 9 or 8.
It's one option. What other explanations might somebody else have? What do some people think? Everybody gets an A? Is that how the world works? This is how the world works, right? Some people have A's and some people have F's. The normal curve. That's what most people think. And here we are trying to repair the world. Because what we want to do is actually this. Right? That's what I've been trying to do. And because you're here now, I know that we are many and we are going to make it happen. So, thank you very much. You had such a determined expression on your face right now. I could tell it. So, thank you. Oh, you, yes. Thank you very much. I know it's late. So thank you for your attention.
A gente tem um tempinho para perguntas. Se vocês tiverem tempo, a gente tem um tempinho aí, estourando até as 6h30. Perguntas, comentários, se alguém quiser fazer. Se apresente.
Ok. Bem, boa tarde, boa noite. Good evening for everybody. I am Semiramis, and I'd like to say that I loved your class today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I was wondering, in that first video you showed us today, if someone realized that the guy who asked for something in that 10-item priority list for a food, does someone realize that?
Yes. People hear that a lot because when they say, let's take this and the fruit, right? And they say, no, 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 no. And he says, I'm hungry right now, right? You heard that. Many people hear it. And yeah, that's why I said it's painful. That's, as I said, it's painful to watch it. And also, it happens all the time. And that's why we have to do, I think, what we have to do so that that doesn't happen too often anymore.
Just a moment.
Hi, Rachel. It's not the first time I hear you talk about that, so it's always very interesting. You know, it's always another way to see the situation. So thank you. And I have two questions. The first one: do you think that the furniture, the actual way children sit together, influences the way they interact? And the second question is that we see there's a problem, we know there's a problem, and the only way to fix it is the teacher's intervention when the teacher says, you're the good one, you know, you have the right answer, please listen to her. Or are there other ways that we can change the interaction?
It's probably a combination of more than one, because, as I said before, in order to be able to do the kind of assignment of competence that, you know, it's really, really research-based. We counted the numbers, that the number of status interventions that a teacher did, which was then related to the participation, that problem that I told you about, the status problems, really declining. So I'm very confident because it's real data, and we did it in the most quote unquote scientific way possible. We had a theory, we had hypothesis, had a methodology, very careful data analysis, and so on and so forth. And that's, I have to say, it's one of the things that makes me incredibly proud. It's not just something that somebody thought about. Wouldn't it be nice if we did this? Well, maybe. But I really need evidence. Really, really evidence. Just like the scientists do. And I much appreciate it. So,
I was thinking of the other recommendations that you give that you didn't talk so much about today, is that you give a responsibility for each person in the group.
Yeah.
So maybe this also helps people interact in another way.
Right, right. I said that everybody in the group has a role. And when somebody sees that, oh gosh, that person is a pretty good reporter. We talked and talked and talked. He took notes, and now he represents, or she represents the group and speaks on our behalf and does it in a really good way. Yeah, absolutely. And the students, and that's been my experience as well. Thank you for that question. That the students recognize, they come to recognize their own strengths and also the strengths of the others. And I'll never forget that how I was so surprised. There was a student, she herself had special needs, but she all of a sudden was in a group with another student, and she says to him, oh, that drawing that you made is so expressive. I love it. Can you sign it for me and give it to me as a present? I went like, it was amazing. It was the kind of things that she heard a lot, and it stuck with her. A seventh grader. I said, sometimes I can't get a teacher, an adult teacher, to do the same for a longer time than this young girl. And maybe because she herself was a special needs student, she paid particular attention. So,
Rachel, may I ask a question? Yeah, me, Rosalie, here.
Yes, hi, Rosalie.
You gave examples about positive interventions, but we are discussing about adults. Can we make other kinds of intervention? For example, if you have somebody with adults, in a group of adults, and there is one that is too much alpha and does not listen anybody, can we make another type of intervention?
As in saying, shut up?
Can we?
Rosalie, I just couldn't resist. Well, what I do with adults at faculty meetings, by the way, I start actually collecting data. And seriously, I look at, here we have a faculty meeting of an hour. And there was this one person who spoke 25 times. And others, much, much less, of course, in the whole group or in the smaller group. I didn't walk around. And then I would just really, I mean, it's a colleague. I wouldn't do it with any colleague. It depends on the relationship. But I would say, yeah, you know, I noticed that there is such a huge difference in the rate of participation or talking up in our faculty. And I actually did this. I started counting. And this is a true story, by the way. And the person said, and what did you find out? That you dominated? No, I didn't say that. But I said, why don't you do it yourself? And that actually helped. Yeah. Some self-awareness, it helped. But it's hard. It's really hard, Rosalie.
It's nice that we can do this on a sweet way, like you. Wonderful.
You go to the data, you know, and actually that, or, you know, in my case, I did actually go to the dean. And she said, yeah, I saw this, and but I said, here are the data. And that gave her more, I think, legitimacy in her own eyes to go up to that person and say what she said. Yeah, it's all about, and I have to admit that sometimes I go into these situations and I just want to go around and hear what people are saying or look at, oh, that's an interesting conversation. And it's really narrowing me in a way, because all I can see is status, inequities. And I just, I can't stand it. But I'm doing my best. So.
Thank you, Rosalie. It's clear in your approach that equity is a social construction. What means, for me, means that I need to put attention I need to put attention on my class and my school. But at the same time, I need to put attention in the society where it's happening, the construction of this reality. It's not, it's possible. What do you think about?
The more of us engage, it makes it more possible. And we used to say amongst each other that if you work in this kind of thing and you talk about how to make classrooms more equitable, you know, for me that's the main issue, and at this level, and how to train more teachers to actually do these things, I will always have a job. I wish I didn't have to, but yes. And the more we do it, really, the more of us, and the more each one of us does it, I think the better. I just have, you know, you talk about equity at the level and of society, okay? And I try to explain always the difference in English, particularly between equality and equity. Right? Equality means that everybody gets the same, which now is going to give me the opportunity to brag with the fact that we have 4 grandkids, right? And I have 8 candies, and everybody gets 2 candies. That's equity. But if I see in another way that, well, maybe one of them shouldn't have because of diabetes. Okay, so they don't get it. On the other hand, if somebody else is really sad and I want to give another extra candy, I will do that, because I would say that equity means you give everybody what they need. And one of my students in the back of the room said, Rachel, you're such a socialist. And I said, yes, and proud of it. Because as teachers, I think that that's what we do. We give everybody what they need. And if we all were to do that, it would make such a better society.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Eu recomendo também um livro que a gente tem usado muito no PED, de trabalho em grupo. Tem uma versão, inclusive, em português, porque no mundo de hoje, cada vez mais a gente trabalha em grupo, ninguém faz nada sozinho. Então, é muito interessante. Tem um livro aqui. I forget to bring mine. Eu esqueci de trazer o meu. Mas esse livro é muito interessante. E em todos os cursos com a Rachel, a gente trabalha teoria e prática. Então, você vai refletir a respeito de alguma coisa, mas você tem uma série de dicas práticas. Então, você coloca em prática, né? Então, assim, eu recomendo muito. Tem ajudado a gente bastante, não só para trabalhar com professores da educação básica, mas para o ensino superior, até porque os jovens que chegam na universidade hoje não tiveram essa oportunidade, né, de trabalhar, de estar em escolas em que foram tratados com equidade, né, de aprender a ver as fortalezas de todo mundo e conseguir, né, trabalhar melhor quando eles estão em grupo. Então, eu recomendo bastante. Bom, obrigada a todos por terem ficado até aqui. Muitíssimo obrigada. Mais uma salva de palmas para a nossa convidada. Uhul.